All right. Welcome to a very special edition of Delayed Offside. Special because literally everyone is here for the first time in months. So that's always a noteworthy kind of situation. But we're going to start with a little bit of surprises and letdowns or things like that. But I want you to think about this season. Think about some of your expectations. Think of things that you thought were going to happen or weren't going to happen. And at the end of the season, heading into the playoffs, what is something that was a complete surprise to you? And what was something that was a complete disappointment for you? Okay, so a surprise and a disappointment. And we're going to go with the person who exemplifies both those things in my life. Sanjay, you're going to start us off here. Explain to me, tell me what the surprise and what the disappointment is in this season. It doesn't have to be your team. It could be league wide. So feel free.
Okay. Well, surprise for me, how good the Calgary Flames were this year. Especially that top line, like going into it, I had high expectations knowing what, Gaudreau, Tkachuk, and Lindholm were capable of, but they by far surpassed my wildest dreams. Like I'd never imagined that all three of them would get 40 goals. Gaudreau would finish second in the league in scoring, plus 60 million or whatever it was. Like it was a crazy year. So that top line, in a good way, surprised me.
And what's your disappointment?
My disappointment. Oh, geez. That the Oilers made the playoffs. Can I say that?
Sure.
Going in, I wasn't sure. At times through the season, it looked like they were kind of done. Credit to them for not just folding it in and tanking for the number one overall draft pick and actually putting in a good effort the second half of the season and making the playoffs. So that's my disappointment, I guess, is that the Oilers made the playoffs.
All right, now let's go to Pilon.
Let's see. Biggest surprise. I'll say the play of one Michael Bunting. When we lost Zach Hyman over the offseason, I really thought we would not be able to fill that hole at all. And I was really worried about that top wing spot. But Bunting's fit in there perfectly. He's produced at a higher rate than Hyman ever did in Toronto. And he just somehow has that great chemistry with Matthews and Marner, and they've formed one of the best lines in the league. So that was a great surprise because I really didn't think they'd be able to replace what Hyman brought to the team. A disappointment around the league, I guess I would say the disappointing one would be Vegas. Because I really thought Vegas would be the top team in that division. I thought that was their division to win. A fairly weak, no offense, guys, division in the Pacific there. I figured Edmonton would be up there. I thought, with Calgary not performing so great last year, I still thought they would make the playoffs, but not be as great. So that's a nice surprise for Calgary fans. But I really thought Vegas, that was theirs to win. And especially with some of the acquisitions that they made and everything like that. Very surprised that they performed so poorly this year.
All right, Adam.
My biggest surprise was the amount of players that overtook the 100-point mark this season. It was entertaining to see. It was a lot of fun to watch. And it was nice to see who got in there. I was just on my phone trying to figure out how many players were in there, but I can't find it because my internet's not working. But there were at least 6, 7 players that were over the 100-point mark. And I just think it was a great season for milestones and for many different players in terms of performance. So you got Roman Josi with 95 points as a defenseman, Shesterkin and his save percentage and what he's done for the New York Rangers. Kreider and all his power play goals and, overtaking the 50 goal mark, along with, Matthews and Draisaitl. My disappointment was actually what Pilon brought up, was the anchor that seems to be Jack Eichel. And, you see this all-star supposedly going to this team filled with a couple more all-stars, and they just can't fit the bill to make the playoffs. So that's kind of where I am at with those. I don't know. I'm trying to think of more disappointments because
No, it's fine.
And there's 8 players with over 100 points this year.
There we go. Thank you, Ryan.
So I'll pick an off team one for me, which is I am surprised by the performance of Matt Duchene. That is a player that I have written off for years, not like a year, but like years.
Yes.
And he had a hell of a season for Nashville. I think 80 some points. And honestly, that's really good. Like, I mean, that is not something I would ever put with that guy. I mean, I understood when he was a Team Canada guy and everything else, but really, since going from Colorado to Ottawa, like and even in Nashville, he hadn't been that good till recently. So that's mind blowing.
And we all laughed when Sanjay had him on his Team Canada roster.
I still wouldn't put him on my Team Canada. I still think there's better players.
40 goals.
Good season, man. Good season. My disappointment's going to be the Winnipeg Jets. And I don't know if anybody saw it today, but essentially stats need point out there about how guys need to start playing for the team and playing for each other instead of their stats. And when they asked about the season, Scheifele's response was, well, I got to see if I'm going to, what's going to be going on here, if I'm going to be here or not, basically indicating that he's that guy. And I'm
in the prime of my career.
Yeah, it looks like things are not good there on lots of levels. And that is a team that's window was open, that should still be open, given that most of the players are in their early 20s. And it is not looking nice for next year. So that is a huge disappointment for me. And I think probably for every Jet fan as well. But with that, the only thing that matters is not the Jets right now, but the playoffs, baby. Let's start this episode. Okay, well, let's start this episode off with our playoff prediction. Now, this has been something that Ryan's been working on for a long time, probably about an hour, doing graphics. And he has a very set order. And like always, we can't break his order. So if I screw up, it's going to be one of those things that I get punished for. So click, subscribe, because that reminds me to say those things as well. Am I doing good, sir?
You will not be punished after this episode.
All right. Sweet. Well, let's start off with the quintessential matchup of this playoffs, the most important matchup of this playoffs, the one that people care about, the Edmonton versus LA Kings. All right. So this is Edmonton versus LA. This is some pretty intense stuff here, people. Taking a look at some of the stats here, 5-on-5 goals for the Oilers, surprisingly higher than you'd think. But when it comes to goals against per 60, the Kings rather high. The power play, terrible for the Kings. It had been a really bright spot for the Oilers early on in the season, but had kind of tailed. What has been interesting, though, is that the Oilers PK has picked up and the Kings PK has been solid throughout the year. This is an offensive team versus a defensive team. The point difference really isn't that big, despite the fact that the Kings are missing some of their top players. So let's see what people's thoughts are on this matchup. Let's go with some general stuff here. Like, what are your thoughts upon the matchup first? And then we'll go from predictions from there. But let's try to keep this quick because we have a lot of these to go through. Let's go with you, Ryan. Start this one off.
You said it, Baron. This is basically offense versus defense. You have some of the best offensive players in the world in Edmonton with McDavid and Draisaitl. And, Evander Kane has really boosted that offense for that team as well. And then on the other hand, with LA, I mean, you have some of the great two-way centers in Danault and Kopitar down the middle, and they're going to be trying to shut those guys down. So it'll be really interesting to see if they can do it. Losing Doughty, I think, really hurts LA, trying to shut down those big guns without your number one defenseman. I think that's going to hurt them.
Adam, we'll go to you for this one. What do you think is going to give Edmonton an edge in this series?
Oh, I think it's that spine of centers. Well,
that's just my watch. My watch heard me talking and thought I was talking to it. Go ahead.
I think it's the spine of the centers and spreading out your wealth of skill throughout that lineup, and Woodcroft giving everyone empowerment throughout that lineup to succeed. And we've seen it happen. We've seen the defense the team defense really tighten up as well. And with that, better goaltending as well. So, I
think goaltending.
Wait, Sanjay, you'll get a chance.
Absolutely.
All right, Sanjay, we'll go to you here then.
Woodcroft has come back. Absolutely.
Sanjay, we'll go to you here. What's going to give the Kings the edge then? Because I think that's going to lead to your comment.
Well, I wasn't
saying better goaltending than the Kings, but there will be better goaltending than the Kings in this series.
Confidence. I like it. The Kings, I will say coaching and experience. I think the Kings have a better coach who's been there before. He's made it deep. And the Oilers have as good of a job as Woodcroft has done. This is his first NHL playoffs experience as well, right? So I think that, and he coached under Todd McClellan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, for years.
Yeah, so I think McClellan kind of knows him. It's like Master Splinter and the Ninja Turtles. Like the Ninja Turtles were young, but Splinter, he was older. He knew how to defeat him. So for that, I'm going to say that the Kings have the coaching advantage and experience because they've been there before.
Now, Cindy, you pointed out something earlier, which was the Oilers were in kind of a little bit of a slumper in the season. And it looked like things were getting kind of bad. The Kings have kind of been consistent. I don't think anyone really had the Kings as one of their teams to be in the playoffs this year. So they've done a really good job of bringing themselves back into this. But it does feel like it's two different storylines that are kind of emerging together there. When it comes to this matchup, we'll just go straight to predictions, I think, and like what you're going to do, or sorry, how many games you think and who will get it. But we'll go from there, and we'll start with you then, Sanjay. Who's going to win the series and how many games?
All right, I'm going to take the upset. I'm going to take Kings in 6.
There we go.
I have
So I've
Oilers
never
in
been rich.
6. I have Oilers in 6. Like I said, I think Doughty being gone hurts. And I think that, since Woodcroft's come on, there's been no hotter team in the NHL. So Oilers are heading in really on a hot streak, and that always helps going into the playoffs, feeling confident in yourself. Although I do want to point out, Adam was saying that their defense is really tightened up. I was actually looking at the numbers, and their defensive analytics aren't that different between Woodcroft and Tippett. It's fairly similar. The difference has been Mike Smith. He's been posting unreal numbers. I think it was like the 940 save percentage, somewhere around there.
He's had 2 shutouts back to back in that time.
It's been nuts. So, I mean, I'd be a little hesitant on that because I don't think at this point you can say Smith is a 940 goalie. So at some point he's going to cool down a bit. So we'll have to see how Edmonton handles that. But offensively under Woodcroft, they've done a lot better, especially with Evander Kane really starting to heat up and feeling confident once they picked him up. So I think hopefully they can outscore their troubles.
Adam, slap him back. Give him something.
Fun. Edmonton in 4, boys. Clean
Whoa.
sweep. Moving on.
Wow. You're not even getting the Kings 1.
I'll go Edmonton in 5 myself.
That's what I was going to take, but you know what? Screw you.
I think it's gonna be an interesting series. I think it is going to be tighter than people think. They got 2 of the best shutdown guys out there, but I do think if you look at the thing I've noticed in the switch since Woodcroft has come is how those 3rd line and 4th line players actually contribute, and that is not something that they were doing prior to that.
He finally put Nugent Hopkins on the 3rd line, which we've been talking about forever, right?
But they couldn't before that either, right? Till they got Kane, they
got Kane, I suppose, yeah.
And the other thing I think that pops up here is that when we're talking about whether or not the defensive numbers are better, I can tell you a defense core without Drew Doughty versus a defense core with Darnell Nurse. I think I know which one I'd like. That being said, the Oilers have given me nothing to have confidence in them at any point this year. Like not this year, even just like the last 2 years, playoff wise, where they've also been the favorite. But I'm going to ride it out and say, hell yeah, this is the year. This is the year all the Canadian teams go to the 2nd round. With that, we're going to talk about the other.
He already gave away 2 more. Wow.
What?
Oh, it's
You gotta let the audience come back for more, Barry.
I'm excited.
That's my
Let the
opinion.
man be
I'm
excited.
the host. I'm allowed to have things.
You don't bring the steak out with the appetizers. You got to set the table, set the mood. You can't just throw it
Look,
all.
I know that you worked at Montana's, but I don't have to hear about it all the time. We're going to go to the lesser important series, the 3rd most important one, at least based off TSN's rankings today. And we're going to talk about Calgary versus Dallas. Now, this is an interesting matchup because this is one of the last ones to get kind of finalized for the series. As it came down to it, it was looking like a great storyline was emerging where the Calgary Flames are going to have to play their former goalie, Big Save Dave, who we all agree, except for Sanjay, isn't actually that good of a goaltender.
He's actually the
Former
Leafs'
All-Star.
former goalie.
He
That's
made
true,
the
he is.
All-Star team.
So what? You have to make the All-Star team. One person makes the All-Star team. Hey, Ryan, how was Jack Campbell's save percentage after making the All-Star team? I'm not even being
Barry's just salty from the stick throw.
I don't know what
honest.
I don't know what his overall was. I know since
But
he
it
came back
dropped,
from injury,
didn't
it
it?
was like 914.
It dropped for a bit.
Yeah, it
Okay,
did.
and that's
Yes,
my
it did.
point.
Stick throw.
Anyways,
It's
this
just
will be an
making Barron
interesting
salty.
series. This will be an interesting series. Hey, they crushed him after that, so I don't even
I
care.
know.
It's okay because I know Barron's picking Leafs to win, so I feel okay.
Yeah, let me talk about this series, Sanjay. All right, so they would have liked that matchup because they'd actually matched up really well, and I think fans would have too because the intensity was already there off the bat. But unfortunately, the Stars were able to crawl themselves into it. Now, this is an interesting matchup because the Stars, to me, are really a team that we don't talk about because they don't have anything that really stands out. And the things that do stand out for them are like you have a very
Joe
old
Pavelski.
player who is amazing. Yes, exactly, Joe Pavelski. So
Well,
it's
Rupins
kind of a
is-
weird thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Hints.
They got some players.
All right, so let's break this down.
There's
What do we
that.
think? I don't even know what the hell we talk about anymore, but let's break down this series. I know that Sanjay's going to have the edge, so we're going to give Adam this chance to break down this series.
And how much Adam's looking forward to wearing a Calgary Flames jersey next podcast.
Yeah.
One of these days.
Well, the horses are well rested and ready to be saddled up to ride hard and lope through the fields. Not in the night, because that's when the stars are out, but in the daytime.
Fantastic analysis.
You can tell,
I don't know if we. I don't know.
Sanjay's been around him the least because you and I just sit there and look at each other. People onto the Sanjay just laughs. And we're like, oh yeah.
That's because he's seen enough Sutter. But honestly, I think that we're not doing the prediction quite yet. But
no, this is just your matchup breakdown.
Yeah, I just think that Calgary plays such a heavy game, and their skill pops at precisely the right time within games, especially late in the season. We're seeing it, especially when Toffoli came. It seemed like there was another boost with their offensive output, especially in a system with Sutter, who's more of a shutdown guy. You're getting a really good mix of that great defense, good goaltending, and unbelievable playmaking and scoring. So, I think the Stars are really going to struggle. That being said, they do have a number of players that know how to get there. You get Sagan, who's won. Ben's been there. A number of those players were on that team that went to the Cup final a couple years ago.
Yeah, we're like 2 years removed from their final appearance.
Yeah,
exactly. So I wouldn't quite count them out. Look for them to make it a series, but ultimately I think it's going to come down to goaltending.
All right, now to give Calgary the edge on this one, we're going to go to Sanjay. What gives them the edge over Dallas? Ryan, prep yourself as best you can.
I have to do Dallas's point of view. Oh God.
Yeah, well, you're going to tell me why they have an edge, but go ahead there, Sanjay. Well, you can tell me what'll be good for them. I don't care.
To me, I think it's just goaltending is one, coaching is one, but that top line, Dallas has some good players, but Calgary has three players that will be nominated for awards possibly at the end of the season.
So a one-line team is what you're saying. I understand.
Yeah. For years I called the Oilers a one-line team, and now it's the Flames with the one line carrying. I think this one line just stands out, and it's not even just that. Like the depth, like Toffoli, Mangiapane on your second line, and you have players like Coleman, who's got back-to-back cups, and Yarncroke on your third line, and you got Lucic on the fourth line. Like that's not bad depth coming into the playoffs. So, I still remember the 2020 series, but a lot has changed since then. We got better coaching, the Flames, better goaltending, and Corey Perry is no longer on the Stars, and he is a Flames killer. So that is just a massive swing for Calgary from 2 years ago, in my opinion.
All right, Ryan, what do you think is the Stars' advantage if they have one?
Oh my God. Honestly, while Sanjay's been talking, I've been looking everywhere for some sort of advantage. So they've been really good on the penalty kills since the trade deadline. One of the top teams on the penalty kill. So there's that. They're a veteran team, I guess. And so like Adam was saying, they've kind of been there, done that. And so they'll rely on that veteran leadership and experience. But honestly, I mean, they're really like Calgary was the only team when I was putting those statistics together that finished top 10 in every single one of those statistics I listed. They are an elite team. So it's very hard for me to find ways that Dallas has the advantage. Not going to lie.
Well, I will say one thing for Dallas, and that's history. Calgary does not have a good history in the playoffs. Like no Flames fan that has been around as long as I have is feeling confident going into any playoff series. Like to give you some stats to show how anemic our playoff history is. The last time the Flames won a first round playoff series against a team not named Vancouver was 1988. So it's been a long time. So, no one in Calgary should ever feel confident going into a playoff series.
Yeah, and I can't say I've ever seen Johnny Gaudreau perform in the playoffs either, now that you mention it. So, I mean, first time for everything if they do both.
He's been fine, okay? It's Matthew Tkachuk that has been struggling in the playoffs. So
I don't know if I believe you. I have enough Flames fans that when you bring him up, complain about his playoff performances.
Well, it's always the question of size. if you don't have enough size in the playoffs, and it's a different beast in the playoffs, can they
You're right.
fight their way through?
When you can get cross-checked in the face and it's not a penalty, it's a lot harder to perform.
Yeah.
It's true.
And small guys can do it. Like you look at Braden
Patrick
Point,
Kane.
he's a monster in the playoffs, but he's an asshole in the playoffs too. Like he's relentless, and that's what you have to be when you don't have the size.
Yeah, think of
You have
Marty
the
St.
tenacity.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to jump to the next series.
Are we not picking our?
Oh, geez,
predictions?
sorry. Yeah. Okay. Let's go then. We'll go with me first then, because I went last time, I guess. We'll say I'm going to go Calgary in 4.
Oh, the Flames have only made one.
Hey, I didn't say it was
history.
your turn, did I? Wait, you stop interrupting everyone. We're going to go to Adam next because he's been polite.
Thank you. I'm going to say. I'm going to say Calgary in 5.
Right?
I will also go Calgary in 5.
Sanjay.
Calgary in 6 or 7. It's going to be a lot.
Whoa.
You can just tell you have so much PTSD versus the rest of us. It's if we're just like throwing out easy numbers.
He doesn't want to
like,
jinx it. Is the
7.
thing. He doesn't want to sound confident and then get.
Takes a big swig.
It's gonna be a
And then
meme of
says,
him.
It's not going to be.
7.
I don't foresee it being 4 straight or 5.
It's
in my
gonna be Dark
opinion,
guy. He's going to be the next Calgary Dark guy when they get the nosebleed picture of him in game 1 with the cigarette hanging half out his mouth and the cowboy hat.
Sanjay, are you even going to enjoy these playoffs? Because I remember last year you said it was quite enjoyable when your team was out of it. You had nothing to worry
Nothing to
about.
lose.
So exactly. So are you going to be okay?
every other game, every other day will be an enjoyable day.
If they
Or
win,
not,
it'll
if
be a
you're
great
lamenting
2
a
days. If
loss.
they lose, it'll be a rough 2 days.
Yeah.
Exactly. Especially if they have to play Edmonton in the second round. Then I don't know. I'll probably be pretty stressed out for that. Not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Oh,
all of us will be. All right, let's jump to the next series, the American series, and the one that probably is one of the must-watch series if you're going to just jump in as a hockey fan, which is Minnesota versus St. Louis. These are two teams that have matched up pretty well this year. They played each other. I think Blues have the edge over Minnesota, but Minnesota has been the better team overall. For the 5-on-5 goals for, they're second in the league, which is an extremely impressive thing. But the power play is second on the St. Louis Blues, which is a little bit of a shock to me to understand. This is a team that had a guy named Tarasenko available for trade, and no one took him because of his shoulder injury, and he now leads the Blues in points. Imagine where they would be without him today. So this is going to be a very interesting matchup for a lot of reasons. They're a couple of years removed from their Stanley Cup win, about 3 years now. They still have a lot of that core, but there has been some heavy turnover, so it's a little bit different. Their goaltending situation has changed, and it looks like they have a new guy to kind of like be that guy that they're going to follow. Minnesota, on the other hand, has it set up a little bit different, where they have had to buy out some of their old, slower players, have put themselves in a bit of a cap lock, not this year, but moving forward, have probably one of the most dynamic players in the team as their leading scorer, and made a trade for a future Hall of Fame goaltender, setting up the best tandem in the back end of the thing. So let's break this down. Tell me what you think about this series. Let's go to Smungy.
Honestly, Minnesota has been so impressive down the stretch. Like, what have they been their last 20 games? Like 18-1-1 or something ridiculous like that. They have been on fire. They're finished second in the Western Conference for points, I believe. I think they are just peaking at the right time. It's going to be tough for St. Louis to beat Minnesota. And it's unfortunate for St. Louis because they finished like higher, but because of how tough the Central Division is, they got to play Minnesota in the first round. But I think this is going to be a heck of a series. This is going to be, if you're ESPN, show the Flame series, obviously, but then show this series second, because this series is going to be must-watch TV.
All right, let's go to the advantages here. We'll go to advantages. I'll let you choose, Ryan, which team you want to do the advantage for. You can pick either Minnesota or the Blues, and then Adam, you'll have whoever else he doesn't take.
Sure, I guess I'll go advantage Minnesota. And they would have the advantage at 5-on-5, both offensively, defensively, puck possession. They dominate in that respect. And like, what a difference a few years can make. When was the last time we looked at Minnesota as an exciting, dynamic, offensively exciting team to watch? Never,
Yeah,
right?
never.
Like,
Medano was there.
what's that?
But not since Medano played for the North Stars or Minnesota.
Right. Yeah.
It's true.
So, like the last great offensive player I can think of was Gabrick probably that played there. And like, he's nothing like what Kaprizov is bringing to this team. So I think a few podcasts ago, we were actually talking about how he might start breaking club records in just a few years already. He's barely in the league.
Yeah.
So, it just kind of shows you like, this team just has not been blessed with a lot of all-stars, and they have it now. And at 5-on-5, this team has got it. And then Baron, you already talked about the goaltending tandem, like you said, the best goaltending tandem in these playoffs. And it is because, you have the reigning Vezina Trophy winner, and then you have Cam Talbot, who was super hot after that trade for Fleury. I honestly don't even know who they're going to start in the playoffs. Baron, you took Fleury in our playoff pool, didn't you?
I did. I think, and like you're right in the sense here that it might not be Fleury to roll here off the bat, but I think it will be. I think the idea is going to be you grabbed Fleury. Talbot's been amazing for you, but I just think like why would you bring him in other than for playoffs? That experience, that structure. That's why I think he's going to get some games in here off the bat. And then when he waivers, Cam Talbot will come in. But yeah. TSN disagreed. TSN didn't have an agreement on this either. They thought, somebody said, no, Talbot should start. I think McLennan said Talbot should start with short leash. And then also was like, no, Fleury should start because he's the guy who's been there before. He knows what this takes.
Right.
And they're like, look at someone like Carey Price. They're different in the playoffs than they are in the regular season. So I gambled a bit, but I mean, I think it's going to be Fleury.
I would think Fleury will get the majority of the reins, but you're right. As soon as one guy gets a little cold, throw the other guy in, because I mean, both are legit starters. So, that's going to be very tough for St. Louis to overcome. Like, you start to get in one goalie's head, well, here's another, fantastic number one starter to go up against.
Agreed completely. All right, Adam. Go to the Blues.
Yeah. Blues, they've got an advantage with, again, we talk about history, and, they have a couple guys that have done it just a couple of years ago, and 3 to be exact. And, we've got a great leader in O'Reilly. Tarasenko has got a chip on his shoulder, like you said earlier, and he's scoring at a rate in which we assumed he would years ago. He was slowing down. Robert Thomas is starting to really flourish as a center in this league. The D-core knows what it takes. Binnington's not what Binnington was when he won the cup, but Husso seems to have stepped in and taken that. You got a coach that's led that team as well to get there. Like, if we're going strictly on experience, they've got the buckle. So
fair enough. That's fair.
This is probably the one where it feels the most like a coin flip.
Yeah.
Where like if one team won, you'd be like, yeah. If the other team won, you'd be like, yeah. Like, it wouldn't feel like a big shock or a surprise, I don't think. But I still think that there is a favor. But I think this is one that I'm actually kind of excited for outside of like a Canadian team to watch. I think this is one that I will be very much locked on. So we're gonna go with I think, Ryan, did you pick first yet?
I don't think so. Sure, I'll go.
Let's go with you.
I'll go with Minnesota in 7. I think it is going to be really tight. I could see either team win it. I'm hoping Minnesota wins it because I loaded up on them in our fantasy pool. So I need them to go far.
Yeah, Adam.
I also think Minnesota in 7.
Sanjay.
Just to be controversial, I'll say Minnesota in 6.
Ooh, they're very controversial.
And I will also go Minnesota in 6. I wish you would have said St. Louis in 6. Darn you, Sanjay. Darn you.
I thought Sanjay would be having his beer and he'd be like, I don't know, 6 or 7 again. I don't know.
No, he'd be like 6 or 7. The Oilers suck. I hate them. You're like, we're not talking about that, Sanjay. No, it's true. They attacked me and they threw stuff at me when I was a kid, and I hate them. Stop it, Sanjay. Okay, we're gonna end up here. We're gonna close out the Western Conference with the what I think is going to be probably what we refer to as a butt kicking, but the Colorado Avalanche, probably one of the top teams in the playoffs out of everyone, like probably one of the two, and the lowly Predators, who've had a hell of a season, but I don't think anyone really predicted to make the playoffs this year, even as a wild card team. These two are going to head to head. This is a team that has The Avalanche is a team that has high expectations after a couple disappointing years in the playoffs. And the Predators kind of come in a little bit footloose and fancy free. However, they're missing their star goaltender in UC Saros, who has a high ankle sprain. But they do have the highest pointed defenseman in the NHL in like 30 years in Roman Josi. So it's gonna be an interesting matchup. I believe Colorado's getting their guys back too, isn't it? Like Taves is better now, he said. I think Landeskog is going to come back now.
He's back,
He's been out.
Oh,
So-
how magical. All their players come back around playoff time, Colorado.
Just got to
Hey,
rest
they-
after
what
that
are the
playoff
chances?
run.
I actually didn't Landeskog get hurt after the trade deadline? Like,
Yes.
or was, yeah. So I don't think he was of any benefit really there. Sanjay, you're just a monster. Stop it.
You're a monster.
Just because they booted your team that one year so hard.
That was like 3 years ago, and it was all Mike's fault. Okay.
It's the only reason you guys were still in that game. I remember those. That's terrible. Okay, let's go to Adam for the breakdown here of Colorado and Nashville.
I think this is going to be a closer series than what people think. You know, you got a team that's been really flourishing offensively in Nashville, and a team that, you know, does have some offensive flair, but, you know, really plays a little looser than you probably would want in the Colorado Avalanche. So I think it's going to be an interesting series, and I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think.
All right, then we're going to go to the edge portion of this program, where we're going to look at the Nashville Predators, and huge Nashville Predator fan Sanjay for why he thinks Nashville's got to have the edge here.
Easy. I actually think Nashville does have the edge, and I'm not just blowing smoke. They beat Colorado 3-1 in the season series.
Yeah.
They have Roman Josi on defense. They have Matt Duchene, former Colorado Avalanche, with something to prove. They have Philippe Forsberg, who's mad at Peter Forsberg, and he wants to prove that he's the best Forsberg to ever play in the NHL. So, you know, there's a lot of storylines and a lot of favor for Nashville. And as well, Big Save Dave has a lot of experience playing in Colorado, playing for Calgary for many years, and he's beat Colorado on numerous occasions. So I actually think Nashville is very much in the series, and I'm not just making that up. Like, I'm not trying to be funny. I think Nashville can win this.
Stop it. You're so good.
And the Oscar goes to.
Wow, that was hilarious, Sanjay. All right,
Okay,
what
yeah.
gives Colorado the edge here, Ryan?
I just think they're the better overall team, especially at 5-on-5. You know, offensively, they're dynamic with McKinnon and Rantanen and Landeskog, and Kadri's had an amazing season.
Yeah.
They're very, very deep, and then defensively, you know, you have Cale Makar, who has scored 30 goals for the first time in, God, I can't remember how long. Devon Taves, who honestly was just as impressive as Makar this year, and he proved he can be a number one. And then Samuel Girard, honestly, is proving that he's you know, a top defenseman as well. Like, they're so deep. I'm not sure if they're quite as good as last year, to be honest, but I mean, they're still a damn good team. And the thing is, too, Darcy Kemper, the goaltender that they brought in, like he started off really slow. And I think he had some injury issues too, didn't he, at the beginning of the season? But he's really picked it up. He's really picked up for Colorado. And that's going to be a big advantage too, is the goaltending, because Saros was having a fantastic year, but without him in net, I think Nashville's going to really struggle there.
No, fair enough. This one's kind of one of those interesting ones because, like we said, we weren't really sure who was going to play Colorado at the end. It was really a fight to see who could play Calgary, which is a really crappy consolation prize. And as Sutter said, making the playoffs is going to be a wasted 4 days here for whoever that is. And in this case, he's actually apparently talking about Nashville. I do think this one's kind of the one that's a little bit of a wash, but I'm going to go Colorado, and I'm going to say 4 again. Sanjay?
I'm going to take Nashville in 7. They're going to shock the world. I'm telling you, you heard it here first.
There you go.
Fair.
I'm going to go Colorado in 5.
Nashville 6.
Oh,
Wow. I really didn't think we'd be having a split on this one.
Yeah, I'm actually really shocked by this.
Well, I mean, Nashville beat them 3 times this year.
Yeah.
That's got to count for
Saros.
something.
with Saros.
I know, but losing Saros is huge. Like, honestly, Saros could have been up there in the Vezina conversation or close
He
to.
probably should have been. And
Yeah.
that's probably the other part here, which is Big Save Dave lets in goals with 0.1 seconds left on the clock. I mean, you can't.
Well,
have
I
that
mean,
kind of
Matthew
goaltender.
Tkachuk shooting it. You can't expect him to be a miracle worker.
I can. It's his friend. He should be thinking like his friend, you know. But I'm really surprised you two actually took Nashville. I mean, Sanjay did a spiel, but I can't believe that you bought it that much, Adam.
You know, I just got a good feeling about this team. Do you know?
Jano.
Huh?
Jano.
Huh?
Come on.
You know?
There we go. Okay, so that wraps up our Western Conference portion. Like, click, subscribe, share with your friends. Feel free to reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, so forth. And we're going to jump into the big old Eastern with what essentially is going to feel like a tough one in a lot of ways. I can't believe it's only a 5-point difference between the Leafs and the Lightning. And there's a lot of green on both sides of this chart. One of the weird parts is everyone talks about, like, and this isn't a knock on them, but talks about the Leafs, like how amazing the season has been. And Tampa's only 5 points behind, and it's like a disappointing season to some degree. And there are reasons for that we should talk about. But these are two teams that are essentially like offensive juggernauts, well playing, well versed, tough teams, good goaltending all around. It's a tough matchup. I think the Leafs would have preferred Boston. I think Leaf fans would have preferred Boston, even though that history is not there. They just knew they would have had a better team. Instead, their consolation prize was getting the 2-time Stanley Cup champions. Now, what's in their favor here is that no team has three-peated since the 80s. So like the late 70s, early 80s. So really, the Islanders, they're the only ones to do 3 in a row. So we're going to go with that. So let's do our breakdown of the series. We're going to jump to former Leaf fan, Sanjay. Break it down for us.
This is going to be a crazy series. You look at the offensive firepower on both teams, the star power on both teams. You know, if the Leafs were to pull this off to defeat the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions, that could be what they need to go all the way to the finals. I mean, you kind of got to slay Goliath or the dragon. I was thinking, like, who got slayed? Was it David or Goliath? But I remembered it was Goliath.
Was it the monster or the guy? Who won
With the rock?
Little
pebble.
Well, maybe they told the story from the opposite.
Are you
way.
sure Goliath didn't just crush them? Like, just crush them? But go ahead. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, I think actually, in a weird way, this is kind of good for the Leafs because while they are the highest seed, you know, they kind of have, I don't want to say no pressure, but less pressure because they're going up against the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions and they haven't won a playoff series in 18 years. So if they were to get past this round, they're going to the Cup final. I'm calling it right now.
Ooh,
nice.
Now we'll want to see if you actually pick them to go past it. Okay, Ryan, because you're wearing what appears to be a early 1900s Leafs jersey, you can express to us why you think your team has the edge.
Well, I think our team has the edge in a lot of ways, especially on 5-on-5 play. Offense, defense. I mean, they've been an elite team. Puck possession. They have one of the best first lines in the league. Austin Matthews is probably going to win a Hart Trophy this year, or at least be nominated in there. I know, Adam. I know you want. He's won the Rocket. You know, Michael Bunting. He might win a Calder. You never know. They're just very deep. And then defensively, like, I mean, they don't have a Hedman, right? Like you can't match what Tampa's going to bring with Hedman, but the depth on this team this year is just insane because 2 years in a row when we lost Muzzin, there was really no one really great to bring back, like to boost up into that top 4, no one you could really trust. But now we have 2 guys sitting on these playoffs who had really good seasons, and I would feel completely comfortable them stepping in for the playoffs. So the depth is there. On offense, their depth was really a hindrance last year, and that third line has been great with Engvall, Mikheyev when he was on there, or Kerfoot when they put him in, David Kampf. They can put them out there in defensive situations and feel completely comfortable that they're not going to just get hemmed in and scored on. So that is a big change too. So, you know, obviously Tampa is great offensively and defensively as well, but I think
you talk to your team. Shame on you.
But I got to say Toronto just had a bit of an edge there. And then the other edge I would say is Tampa has played a lot of hockey these past couple of years and really condensed schedules too, which makes it even harder. And so, you know, I'm just hoping also Leafs are a bit fresher.
That's weird that you would give your team a compliment and an insult at the same time, but it worked. It worked really well. Okay, Adam, why do you think Tampa Bay's got an edge in this series?
Well, Tampa's got an edge in this series because they want to do what a lot of teams can't do, which is three-peat. They do have the lucky charm. This is an edge. Patrick Maroon, 3-time Stanley Cup champion consecutively, wants to make it 4. He's a keystone-like player in this series. He's going to put some guys out of their misery. Looking at you, Marner. And then, you've got Stamkos, who's had a career year this year, scoring at an unbelievable pace, hit 100 points. We got Kucherov, who's always dangerous. Hedman, one of the best big defensemen in the league. And you've got arguably and probably decisively the best goaltender in the NHL, period, in Vasilevsky. So if they stay healthy, Toronto's going to have a really difficult time getting past them.
This will be the fun. Sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
I was going to say that is the biggest disadvantage or advantage that Tampa has over Toronto is in the goaltending department, because Vasilevsky's been there, done it, and he is one of the best. Whereas Campbell's still trying to prove himself, and he's been injury prone. And if he gets injured, the guy they brought in to be the 1B is already injured. So now they're going to go to rookie Shalgren, right? So that's where I'm most nervous. That
worked out well for Cam Ward, dude. But this will be a fun series. Like, I think this will be this is probably the must-watch series, because it's two juggernauts right off the bat, which is always the complaint about this particular style of playoffs, is that teams that should be playing each other in the second or third round are eliminated in the first round, the way it's currently structured. But we have no actual say over that, so whatever. But I do think this will be a very powerful series because, and I think Sanjay made a good point there, if Toronto gets past Tampa Bay, like, you're like, this is slaying, Goliath and going on. But I've watched that happen before, where St. Louis got past Chicago. And then they couldn't muster anything in the next series. They went to war and they were depleted by the end. And that is the danger of something like this. Sure, it can give you a strategy, but it can also wear you out. So it really depends. That's going to test the character of this group.
If you get past this round, who do you have waiting? Potentially the President's Trophy winners, Florida Panthers. So it's not going to be an easy road to the cup.
We're not going to get there yet.
But it's true. Like, they have the hardest road. But then again, perseverance is the hallmark of champions, right? So,
and the Leafs have sucked against bad teams this year. So maybe it's best that they play good teams the whole way.
Right.
Hey, man, you never know. There could be an upset and you end up with one of those teams against you. So it is crazy, though. But I do think this is a powerful series. I am going to say Leafs in 7 for this one. Adam, we'll go to you.
Yeah, I'm going to say Leafs in 7.
I'm shocked by this, to be honest. I really thought you guys were going to go Tampa on me.
Hey, I picked Tampa players, so I'm going to be happy if Tampa goes. So
I'm also going to go Leafs.
Elon's going to mess it up. He's going to be like, well, we blew his mind so much. He's going to be like Tampa and 4.
Yeah. I almost don't want to say the Leafs are going to win.
Say, I want to hear it on the stage.
Don't jinx them. Honestly, I'll go Leafs in 7, but it really is a toss up. Like, Tampa, I'm honestly terrified of.
It's the toughest. It's the toughest series outside of Minnesota and St. Louis, for sure.
It is, for sure. Yeah. So it's going to be tough. Hoping the boys can finally do it.
Sanjay for the win.
Well, last year, all 4 rounds I said against Tampa. Every single time I said Tampa's not winning, Tampa's not winning, Tampa's not winning. And it made me look bad 4 straight times. So I'm going to actually go Tampa. I'm going to say Tampa in 6.
Yeah, it's hard to complain about it because it's like,
no,
you could see it. You could see so many scenarios, and that's why this is going to be one of the best series to watch.
Oh, I could absolutely see Toronto winning, no problem. Yeah.
So yeah, but I could see Tampa winning, no problem. And I chose
absolutely.
Toronto. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna jump to the next series.
I'm just going to say all I pray for. I'm sorry, but all I pray for is the Leafs can get through one playoff series with no injuries or suspensions, just so that at least if they lose, you can just say, okay, they were the better team and not have all these what ifs. That's all I want. Just healthy, lucky, not having any of those suspensions or injuries just once. That'd be fantastic.
You lose to the reigning Stanley Cup champions. I don't think that's any dust on you. Like, that's tough, but I mean, I don't think that's a mark on this group. But I mean, hey, this group itself, that Tampa Bay Lightning lost to Columbus, 2 years? in a row before they were able to actually get themselves together. Okay, the next group is the President Trophy winning Florida Panthers versus the remnants of Ovechkin's once Stanley Cup raising team. Actually, it's a very different Capitals team than it ever was before, but this is Florida versus Washington. Now, if you take a look at this thing, you're going to see a lot of green and some yellow on one side and a lot of yellow and a red on the other. It blows my mind that power play is 18.8 because literally every goal Ovechkin scores is a power play goal these days. So how is that even?
But 18.8% used to be a good power play percentage. Just this year, it seems like it's just average.
Well, yeah, fair enough. There's a lot of high achieving pieces.
Yeah.
So this is going to be an interesting matchup because the Capitals, once again, 100-point team, but the Capitals aren't the Capitals that we kind of remember them being. Like they're going a little bit of a transition here. They've had some reemergence of some player there. The stalwarts, the players you remember being on there aren't necessarily the ones there. Like Samsonov's, I think, the goaltender now. It's an interesting series in the sense that I really can't tell you much about Washington. Luckily, I don't have to. So we're going to move on and we'll say, who hasn't got to describe much yet? I think, Ryan, have you got to describe much yet? No, you haven't.
Sure.
We'll let you describe this series. Break it down for us.
All right. Well, you got the Florida Panthers, the most dangerous offensive team in the league by far. Honestly, it was like everything that this team touch turned to gold. Like you look at some of the team, like some of the players they brought in, Sam Bennett, who was struggling in Calgary, all of a sudden scoring at a great pace. Mason Marchment, who couldn't get out of the AHL in Toronto, and all of a sudden he has just this huge breakout year.
Sam Reinhart
had a fantastic year. Jonathan Huberdeau broke the record for most assists by left wing in the NHL. Fantastic team offensively. I think on the flip side, I'd say, they're not as good defensively as you may think. I think that they might be exposed there potentially, and Washington actually isn't too bad defensively. So I think Washington's really going to try to intimidate, with Tom Wilson, Alex Ovechkin, even laying the body. I think they're going to try to hit and grind, play that playoff style hockey, and slow this Florida Panthers team down, and we'll see if they can do it.
All right, Adam, we'll get you choose for which team you want to talk about, Florida or Washington. Sanjay, you get the remnants.
I'll talk.
Okay, so who's got the edge? Say again.
I'll talk about Florida.
All right, go for it.
So, Florida has the edge in this series because they were absolutely robbed last year of their chance at a playoff run against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Arguably, maybe the best first round series we saw last year. Pushing the Tampa Bay Lightning to 7 games. You bet those guys are going to come out firing, and it doesn't matter if other teams score on them, they're going to utterly outscore you. Like they're fine and comfortable playing that game. So that's kind of where I'm at, and Huberdeau's on fire, and it's going to be hard to stop him and Barkov.
All right, Sanjay, what gives Washington the edge?
Well, they've won playoff hockey before. They've won playoff series before. Florida hasn't won a playoff series since I'm trying to remember. Was it 96? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since they've won a playoff series. So, they don't have much experience there. I mean, they do have, I was going to say they have players, but do they really? Like all their players really don't have much experience. Like Sam Bennett won a round in Calgary, but that was like against Vancouver like 7 years ago already. So it doesn't really and he was a rookie then, so he didn't really do like a whole lot. But yeah, so like none of their players really. Like Bobrovsky, has he won in the playoffs before?
With Columbus. Yes.
Yeah, I mean maybe he won a round. That's it. Maybe.
Yeah. It was against they were pretty intense series too.
Yeah, right. So like they have some experience, but like Washington won a cup not that long ago. You have Ovechkin, if he's healthy. I mean, he did get hurt at the end of the season. I haven't heard if he's going to play. He missed the last couple of games of the season, but I think he'll play.
I think he'll play.
Tom Wilson, you got Carlson, you got Backstrom. You got some good playoff experience back there. So I think the experience factor may come into play here.
And they got to know that their window's closing too, right? So they've got to have some desperation there, knowing that they only have so many more shots at this thing.
Yeah,
Oh,
especially with the group they have, like
Yeah.
they're aging down for sure. It is interesting though, because injuries are playing a part in both teams. Like you talk about the defense not being that great for Florida, but they've had Ekblad out for a very long time
It's
now,
true,
and it
they
looks
have,
like he's
yeah.
coming back in. And Ekblad could be a game changer. And on the other side, like you said, Ovechkin's injured, and I mean, really, like he is the guy you think of when you think of the Washington Capitals. You know, he's the guy who led him to a Stanley Cup. And so without him being there, that is kind of one of those instances where you really don't know. It's funny because TSN, I think this was one of the ones that they picked to be like, if there's an upset, this will be the series, because the same reasons that Sanjay kind of spoke, experience versus non-experience, that sometimes some people, if you've been there, you can figure it out and switch it on, right? I don't know how likely that is to happen. I'm probably not going to pay attention to this one too much, but I do still think the outcome is basically should be somewhat locked in stone. But we'll go to Sanjay for his prediction first here.
I'm gonna say Florida I'm gonna say 5.
I'll go
Florida in
Florida in 7. I think
Adam?
it is going to be tighter than we think.
Florida 6.
I will also go Florida in 6. I think it's going to be, they're going to surprise you a little bit, but I think the Cats still get it done. Heading to the next matchup here is a little bit of the old guard versus the new guard, as your former 2-time Stanley Cup winners, the Pittsburgh Penguins, probably the best team in the last, 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Realistically.
Yeah, fair.
Well, really, and they've got 3 in that time, right?
Yeah, exactly. Going up against the New York Rangers. And it's weird when you see those point totals, because I really feel like the Pens are actually the favorites. At least maybe that's in my head more than the actual prediction of it. But this is Sidney Crosby. This is Mr. Hockey, if there was one nowadays, versus New York Rangers, Panarin, who's an offensive juggernaut. And actually, Rangers sporting the goaltender with the best stats. Am I boring you, Sanjay? Come on now. Quit rubbing your face and falling asleep on me. A little nod off. With Shesterkin having like an unbelievable season. The Penguins suffering a little bit here because their goaltender, Yari's been out the last little bit. And he has been, well, he might have been their issue previous playoffs. He has been one of their big, standout performers this season. So not having him is kind of a little bit of a
Is
worry.
he out for the playoffs?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think he's back, but I mean, man, your
That'd be
goaltender's
huge.
injured. That
Yeah.
is problematic, because if you got to go to DeSmith, he's just not had the season that Yari has had. Let's break down this series. We're going to go to Adam to break this one down.
All right, you got 2 high-flying teams that play a fast-paced style of hockey, and with that fast pace, they bring a lot of skill. So this is going to be a pretty exciting series to watch. You've got, living legends and future Hall of Famers on one side, and you've got guys that have been surprising people over the last couple of years, especially with their skill and speed as well. In like Zibanejad, Kreider, Shesterkin. It's gonna be an exciting series, and I'm actually really looking forward to catching a couple games.
Bad timing for that sneeze. Right. We'll go to the advantage, and Sanjay, I'll let you pick which team he has the advantage here, because it's going to be tough.
Yeah, this one is pretty tight. I'm gonna go with the New York Rangers. They got home ice advantage and goaltender advantage, and in the playoffs, goaltending is everything. And Shesterkin has been unbelievable for the Rangers. He's just been the best goalie. He's going to win the Vezina. Now, that doesn't always mean that the Vezina winning goalie. I don't know the last time they won the cup, but he has a sizable advantage. Like, the Rangers have a sizable advantage. They also got home ice advantage playing in New York. So I just think the Rangers. I think they're going to get it done this series.
Fair enough.
All right. So for Pittsburgh, I would say the reason they have an advantage is because the Rangers rely so much on one player, that being Shesterkin. And really, I mean, you looked at the stats for their goals against, it was very impressive. But if you look at their defensive metrics, they're not good. They're really not.
What about Jacob Trouba? Isn't good to team.
I think they've gotten better since the trade deadline. But still, Pittsburgh is a very, very good defensive team. And they are great at puck possession. and they've been there, done that. And they have, some of the greatest players from the previous generation playing. And really, I just think it just comes down to, if they can solve Shesterkin, then they will win. Because I mean, the Rangers have some game breakers for sure, but like I said, they really, really rely on Shesterkin and special teams. And if Pittsburgh can keep it at 5-on-5 for the majority of the game, and if they can get some bounces past Shesterkin, I think they can do it.
Fair enough. All right. Well, that's our breakdown of this series. I am curious how this one's going to actually work out, because I do feel like it is old guard versus new. Like Crosby and them have been there before. They've done this. This is New York kind of stepping back into the light for the first time since essentially having that big playoff run with Henrik Lundqvist, the King of New York. And I wonder if just that prep, that experience is going to be like a little bit of a game breaker. I know these other guys have, but it's not the same as your whole group going in, and they are still a relatively young team. How far removed are they from the first overall selection? 2 years?
Yeah.
That's a pretty fast flip here. So I am kind of thinking it is going to be a little bit tougher that way. And I do hope it does go 7, because I have several pens in our draft and I would like those guys to produce a lot of points. So I think it's going to be, I'm still going to think it's going to be Pittsburgh, and I'll say 7. All right, Sanjay.
I'm going to say Rangers in 6.
As much as I was just saying this team relies on Shesterkin, so did another team, Buffalo Sabres, on Hasek, and Shesterkin just had a save percentage in the regular season on par with Hasek. So yeah, during the regular season. So we'll see if he can do it in the playoffs. But I think they have enough game breakers, and I think Shesterkin's good enough. I think they can knock off the Pens in 7.
There you go.
Oh,
Adam.
Penguins in 7. We're talking about practice. We're talking practice, right? Regular season. We're talking about regular season. This is regular season. This isn't playoffs. This is regular season. This is
Baron. How was your day?
That was good. I don't know. Okay, we're going to go to our final playoff preview here. The last one of the series, one of the other ones that was last locked down pretty much near the end, which is the Carolina Hurricanes, one of the beasts of the East, 116 points. God damn. Versus the 107 Boston Bruins. Every year, I think Boston's done. I think that they've gone to crap, and then they do crap like this, where they get 107 points, like legitimately an outstanding season. Both teams outstanding. However, Boston is a wild card team here, and they are going up against a very strong Carolina Hurricanes, well coached, well disciplined, offensive, defensive, and goaltending. However, that may be a little bit in flux. Sanjay, break down this series for us one last time.
Well, on one hand, you got a bunch of well, as my grandpappy used to say, on one hand, you have a bunch of jerks, and on the other hand, you have the biggest jerk in the NHL. So it's going to be a series. I think it's going to be a fun series. I think Carolina has a lot of skill. Their forward group is really skilled. And Boston is just gritty. They're just like, I don't want to say dirty, but they kind of do borderline on that dirty, like they walk the line a little bit, as they say. So I think it'll be an interesting series to see if the skill will prevail, or if Boston and their jerkness with their jerk will prevail against Carolina.
All right. Adam, we'll let you take this one. Carolina or Boston? Go ahead.
I'll take Boston.
Okay.
I just
There's
think
a chance for Ryan to talk positive about Boston as well.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you know what? I'll take Carolina. I'll take Carolina. Just for that. This is gonna be fun. Thank you, Baron, for the gift that keeps on giving. Carolina.
So you really don't believe in anything?
What? Me?
Continue.
I believe in a lot. I think honestly, I think this is going to be one of the more boring series of the playoffs. So it's probably going to be the one that I don't check in on the most, to be completely honest. And I have no idea why. But I think the Carolina's got, a team that knows how to win. They were right there with Tampa Bay last year in the division final. And Dougie Hamilton, when he was with them, put it best. We lost to a team that was 18 million over the cap. Was that last year or was that the year before? Correct me if I'm wrong.
I can't. No,
one of the two.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, they've got a lot of skill up front. They know how to get it done. They've got a good goaltender that's hopefully coming back in Anderson. And, their D is pretty deep as well. So, I think they're going to give Boston a real hard time.
All right. So I got to argue for Boston. So I think the big advantage for Boston is in the goaltending, and simply for two reasons. Number one, the injuries. From what I've heard, Freddie Anderson's not going to be back for the beginning of the playoffs, I don't believe. And I think their backup goaltender Ranta is also injured. So they're going for they're going to be starting the playoffs with their third string goaltender, from what I've heard. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's what I read. So what's that?
Zamboni driver.
David okay, that is what you said. Okay,
back.
Yeah. So I mean, that's already a disadvantage if you're going into the playoffs and you don't have not even just your number one, but not your number two. Then if Freddie does come back, I mean, who knows how he's going to look. And Boston has had success against Freddie Anderson in the playoffs, as I well know. And so they always seem to have his number. And, as great as Freddie has played this season, truly a Vezina caliber worthy season from him. Freddie's just one of those guys, at least when he played for the Leafs, that, he would play great, but he would let in a softie. Once a game, he would let in a softie. And in the playoffs, you just can't do it. So I would say, not that Boston has the greatest goaltending that I'm super confident behind either, but I'm a little more confident than what Carolina has right now.
So I couldn't find who was starting in goal, but I will give you some stats that did come across. In 3 head-to-head games, Carolina has outscored Boston 16-1.
Wow.
Yeah, 2 shutouts and a one goal game.
Wow.
6-0.
They're a great team, Carolina. They really are. Yeah, they're deep.
Yeah, 7-1. And then
what is Sanjay doing?
What the hell is he doing?
Yeah, what were you doing?
Oh, you'll just never know.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't know that I want to know, dude.
You have been
scratching your balls. What's going on over there?
Oh,
that one beer
cat was
got
scratching
to you.
at the door.
He's standing, he's dancing in the back.
My cat was scratching at the door. I just had to close the door. I was hoping you wouldn't notice that. So focused on talking about hockey, you're just like, oh, Sanjay's not here. When did that happen?
Well, it wouldn't have probably if you didn't just dramatically put
your
the hat over top of
on
top of the
Did
thing.
Sanjay's wife just arrive and that's some fun? What's going on?
Yeah, how come Joanna's never been on the podcast once? Shelby scuttled through the room a couple of times, at least in this time, but Joanna's never walked downstairs.
And she doesn't exist. Just
fair enough.
Made her up, yeah.
But yeah, the stats against Carolina or against Boston have been remarkable. Whereas some of the other series are a little bit more tired. This one's been kind of a show. Once again, Boston feels like they're a team good enough to get to the dance, but just not really beyond it. Now they did make some upgrades. They're one of the trade deadline winners, I think, for what's his name? Who'd they grab?
Lindholm?
For Lindholm there. So I think that was a huge grab for them. Their goaltending isn't what it was, but it isn't been terrible either. Whether it's Swayman or Allmark, I think both have been serviceable goaltenders.
Swayman actually had a good stretch there, a really, really good stretch. But I mean, he's a rookie, so you trust that. But
I'm kind of like Adam here. This is probably the one I'm going to pay the least attention to. And then partially is in my brain, I don't think of Carolina as exciting, and maybe they are, but I really, how often do I get to watch them? I watch them live and they kick the crap out of the Oilers. But outside of that, I really haven't, I don't get to see.
They just don't get the same coverage, right? So
I think that's it.
Them as much. Yeah.
You really don't. And they had been up there as a favorite. Look how many points they got. That's a good team, right?
Oh yeah. Big time.
Yeah. But I'm curious here. I am going to say Carolina in 5.
I'll say Carolina in 6.
Adam?
I'll say Boston in 6.
Ooh. And Sanjay.
I'll say Carolina in 6 as well.
Yeah, good times. Okay, now we're going to probably have to do this every time there's a new round, a new matchup. Let's just go with who we think is going to win the Stanley Cup so that we've said it now. And if our team's out, then we're buggered from here on out. So we're going to roll this way. Sanjay, no pressure, but you're first. So you tell me who's going to win the cup and who they're going to play against, like the top 2 teams and who's going to win it.
Okay. Well, obviously Calgary, once they get past that first round jitters, they'll be rolling. And who are they going to play against? Who do I want to see them win? I would love to see them beat the Leafs, but I took the Lightning. So I'm going to say the Lightning, a little revenge from 2004. We're going to stop their 3 cups in a row, and it'll be Calgary over Tampa.
Cool. Adam?
We're going Edmonton. They're going to win the
Edmonton
cup.
against Edmonton East.
Right. And it's going to be, for the first time in a very, very long time, an all-Canadian Stanley Cup final. They're going to beat the Leafs.
Ooh. That's
Who
funny
would I
because
cheer
I
for
was
in
just
that
going to
final?
say all Canadian final, Leafs beat Oilers.
That's what you're going to say?
I was seriously going to say
No way. Yeah.
And
So good.
I'll be the realist here and say Colorado wins it against the Panthers. That's what I got. The softest, easiest guess around. Hey, man. Hey, Colorado's blown it before. Tampa's blown it before. Somebody's going to blow it, and we're just going to see who it is. So
there's going to
with
be one team that you just did not expect to go all to go to
Nashville.
the final. Yeah, exactly. Dallas is going to win it. You heard it here first.
Dallas.
Come
will be back
on,
in
man.
it.
You had to say Dallas. You couldn't have said the Kings. Is it someone else? You had to say Dallas.
Yeah, the Dallas. If it's Dallas versus Oilers in the second round, I'll be like, well, good run, boys. I've been there before. I know. I remember it well.
But this
All
time,
right,
you guys would be the higher seed.
Yeah, but I mean, it's true. But they'll have a Marchand moment, and I'll be like, son of a bitch. But with that, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. Keep fit, have fun, whatever else people say. And with that, I'm Baron.
I'm Adam.
I'm Ryan.
I'm nervous.
Way to put it. Enjoy the Stanley Cup playoffs. Thanks for tuning in, and this is Delayed Offside. See you next week.
Delayed Offside.